Hey everyone, it's Nick with Loud Thumbs bringing you a review for Biomutant today. Biomutant is an open world action role playing game developed by Experiment 101 and published by THQ Nordic. In this game, you can control a raccoon creature in a world of mutated animals. Your actions play a major part in unfolding of a story where the end is coming to the new world. Although you are guided through the world by a storyteller that narrates every step of your journey, it's your actions and choices that'll decide how your story of survival ends. A plague is ruining the land, and the tree of life is bleeding death from its roots. The tribes stand divided, in need of someone strong enough to unite them or bring them all down. So let's talk first about the narrator. This is one of the things that's completely different than any other thing in any other game. The entire game is narrated or voiceovered by a disembodied voice. It's unique and different, but I'd like to see this, change in the future possible. If we get more new games, I'd like to see this change into a real character or something along those lines. Now, a big thing to keep in mind as we go through this here, this game was made by 20 people. So is 20 developers who developed this game. That's it. There's a lot of people involved, but the physical game itself was 20 people. So keep that in mind. We won't touch on that a whole bunch, but now let's get on to the story bits. So as far as the story goes, there's a few things just to throw in there at you. Wung Fu is the type of fighting that you'll do in the game, and you'll see that throughout. There are tribe wars that will happen. You need to decide what tribes you're going to side with. You can do good. You can do evil. You can let the tree die. You can save the tree. There's some backstory going on. Your mother has passed away, and there's some story going on there. So there's a little bit more going on with the story rather than just the tree. There is some backstory in your past that you also have to play through and learn. But it's really, it's really fun to be able to choose the dark or the light as you play through. And you can do a mix of both. If you've ever played Infamous or any of the games that allow you to do, like Fable and those kinds of games, it's a lot like that. None of the actual dark or light has anything physically changing on your body from what I see. It just gives you other powers that you cannot access. If you are dark, you can access some dark powers, but you can't access the light ones and vice versa. So there is that as well, which is very cool. I'm a big fan of that. You can make your character look how you want to make him look, even if you're evil or good. So on to the gameplay mechanics. The automaton, or robot grasshopper, as most of us would call it. This little guy becomes more useful as you upgrade him. As you relive your past memories after finding a certain character in the game, you will be given the option to remember how to activate one of the abilities each time. So you can unlock all the abilities as you find them from unlocking your past. There's a glider, there's a health injector, there's a flashlight, which is already there. You don't have to find that one to activate it. There's also a boost and a turret. And they all come in pretty handy. I recommend unlocking the glider first to aid in traversing the world much quicker and easier. Big difference with the glider. Just think Breath of the Wild with that glider. Let's get on to guns here. Guns, you will have dual wielding options. You use shotguns, rifles, standard guns. Attach elements as biohazard, ice, heat, radioactive. All of those can be attached to weapons, or you can even use elemental ammo instead. All ammo refills automatically except for the elemental ammo. And the clips can be customized in crafting to hold more or less ammo, depending on if you want to do faster reload times or if you want more ammo to be available as you fight. Melee, you have options for crushers, heavy, light, medium melee weapons. You use add-ons found while looting to attach compatible weapons to make them stronger or add additional elemental powers. As you're building those weapons, it's just so much fun to be able to take them and you get to put on different handles and you can mix and match them in different ways. There's something along the lines of like 270 million different options for the weapons in the game. And I believe it. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in it. It took me, probably 15, 20 hours before I found weapons that really fit the playstyle I was going for this time and stuck with them. But you can do a lot of stuff with these weapons and the crafting is amazing. It's really, really fun. There are also abilities in the game. So you do have the option to unlock, like we talked about earlier, dark or light abilities. And as you get points and continue through the game, you can unlock more and more of these. They're essentially attribute points that you would just put toward whatever you would want in this particular field. Unlocking them, there are 4 face buttons on the controller. Depending on Xbox or, PlayStation, you're going to be able to use triangle, X, square, circle, X, B, Y, A. You'll hold the left trigger and you'll map it to one of the face buttons. On the fly, you can use 4 different abilities at the same time, which is very cool. It does deplete your key energy, essentially like stamina or magic, however you want to look at that. There really isn't like a stamina bar in the game. It depletes that over time, and it does refill itself over time as well, just has a kind of a cooldown. Yeah, you can use those on the fly as you would like. It gets pretty crazy if you can use them all. I had a fire one at one point. I had a radioactive like rocket one I could do. I ended up getting a lightning one. You could do lightning from your hands and stuff like that, which I still find interesting. That I played the good character this time, and the good character gets the ability to shoot lightnings from their hand. So if anybody out there knows what I mean from Star Wars, that's usually not the good side. Let's move on to armor. So you have head, face, shoulders, legs, and backpack armor that you can change out. Each one had the ability to change how your character takes and deals out damage. You can build up the armor with add-ons as well. You can make the set of armor specific to your playstyle, or even create it for specific environments. So, because there is hot, cold, there's hydroxia, which is no oxygen, and then there's biotoxic and radioactive. There's 5 different ones. You can use armor or you can use points to build up for that, but the points will deplete over time. But if you use your armor, it's a consistent effect all the time. Just leave the armor on. You may lose, some health or, some attributes from the other armor you weren't originally using, but you won't die when you get into these areas because they will kill you pretty quickly. It does happen. So there's a lot going on with the crafting system in many ways in this game, but for the most part, it is very well done. Just take some time to learn, and after you've learned it and you fit it to what your play style is or kind of what you're looking for as far as fighting certain enemies or anything like that, you do have the ability that you can make 5 different sets of armor, and you can switch them on the fly in your menu screen. 5 different armors, I believe, was the idea to make for 5 different environments without having to switch back and forth, which it did take me, a few hours before I figured that out in the game. That does make it a lot nicer just to build 5 different outfits and then switch them as you go. Once you run into the hot areas, you switch into a heat resistant, armor versus the one you have that's just kicks up all your attributes, which is what I had done in my game. My gameplay, I had high attribute armor, just made me a total badass, and then I had all of my other 4 were generalized for the weather or environment attributes. Let's move on to that. So these are chosen at the very beginning when you create your character, but they can be changed once you find the right creatures during the travels. So you can change your hairstyle, colors, etc., all that good stuff. You can also find biopools that will let you change your overall body look, make yourself taller or bulkier, anything you choose. It's nice to be able to change your mind as the game goes. That's one thing that this game gives you is freedom of choice for sure. If I had to pick one thing, you do get a lot of freedom. On to loot. And man, oh man, there's a lot of loot in this game. Just imagine Borderlands with animals. I hardly ever ran into the same loot twice, and I held on to everything at first to find that, sweet combos for my weapons. But once I found what I was looking for and it fit, my play style, what I was going for, most of the loot became scrap for me to either, build up other armor or, to increase my current weapons to their max levels when you find the upgrade tables located throughout the map. Let's talk about some platforming now. There is a fair amount of platforming in this game, honestly, which by that, what I mean is there's, a lot of jumping from place to place to find a certain, loot box. It might be up on the top of a building, or, you have parts where you have to like go across wire bands and have to keep your balance and that sort of stuff. And that's another part where the glider does come in handy. Getting from place to place is a lot easier for that, especially if you need to get from like a high point to a low point, the side of a mountain or something like that. You can get to it kind of by, not cheating, but, the game lets you do whatever you'd like. So you can kind of just glide to the point you need to get to instead of having to climb some crazy way up there or find another way to do it. So yeah, the platforming is done pretty well. There are some times where you feel like, you should be able to do certain things, but it's possible I was doing stuff that maybe the game didn't want me to do. So let's talk puzzles. Puzzles in the game are called old world gadgets, just so you guys know that. These old world gadgets consist of TVs, washers, radios, phones. There's all sorts of stuff. There's even like projectors and stuff like that. So you find them and you unlock them with like a twisty type puzzle or some kind of wire maneuvering. Most of the puzzles are very easy after you do a couple of them, but I will admit there was one specific one, which I won't say which one. I got stuck on it for way too long. So it is one of the ones that involves letters for any of you out there who have played it. It's just it was a nightmare, and I finally got through it. Vehicles. The game has vehicles, which is very cool. You do have what they call mounts in the game. You will find these as you go. They're all some sort of an animal type, but they're all like a horse, more or less. But you just ride them. And you get them from feeding them certain fruits or foods that they like. And then they will befriend you, and then you can just call for them. Just like calling a horse in any other game, really. It was a little finicky. Sometimes you'd call the thing and it wouldn't show up, and you had to like turn around the camera and then call them again, or you had to like run to a different area and call them again, and then they would show up. So there were some problems there that I think they could have smoothed out when it came to those things. Nothing game breaking, nothing terrible, just a little bit of a nuisance here and there. They had some really cool ones though. They did have one that looked like a hand that, just crawled around like Thing from the Addams Family. It was fun. It wasn't fast or anything like that, but it did turn into like a finger gun, which was cool. You could flip it on its side and you could shoot things with it just by aiming. Yeah, it worked on a couple of enemies that at the time I did not have armor piercing ammunition or weapons. It does armor pierce, so that was nice. It really helped out. And then you have a jet ski that you can use. You find that from a guy and you help him build that up. And then you can go find things in the water and get more loot. There's even loot in the water in this game, which is great. You also get the mech. So the mech is cool. That's one of the first ones I got when I played the game the way I played through. You unlock that thing and there's just some really cool things you do with it, and you'll see in the video there, there's some awesome melee, combat that you can do with that thing, which is cool. I think they should have let you use the mech a little bit more. However, you got to use it a decent amount. I just wanted to use it more for me personally. So, and that was a good time. Okay, let's get into a couple little things here. So some glitches and some stuff that I did run into. The game did crash on me twice during the last World Eater. The first time it crashed on me, I was halfway done killing the thing in the first phase, because it does have a 2-phase thing. I was almost to the second phase to start, and game glitched, total shutdown. I am playing it on the PlayStation 5. Not happy about that. It happened twice and is not an easy boss. And I went into it with really hefty weapons, everything maxed out. So I don't know if that's just something else going on that was with the system or what. That was a bummer. I think that's something that could have been maybe a little bit more polish or something happened on that. I did have, I think, 4 game crashes the entire time I played. Annoying. So that's the end of that, really. There were moments where enemies would get their health back by turning around and walking away from me back to like where they started at, which was strange. I could never figure out why, and it happened not all the time, but if I didn't stay consistently fighting the enemy, then they would slowly walk away. If I was doing backflips away from them or something along that line, they would walk closer and closer back to where they came from. So it was almost like they just forgot what they were doing, or their code was wrong or something. Anyway, that was just a weird one. Their health would regenerate completely, and then I'd have to, go back up there and, start on them all over again. At least ammunition does, refill on its own on the game. You don't have to go find it, so you're not wasting ammo anyway. That would have been a bigger problem for sure. I had a weird one where the switches for one of the puzzles were kind of just not right. Like they were like going through the piece and they weren't like fully attached. They were kind of like angled from the box that they should have been on. And I couldn't access it. I couldn't even do the puzzle. It was weird. I'm wondering if there's any trophies involved with that, because that could be a game-breaking one. I didn't look into the trophy specifically to see if you do all the puzzles, if that's what happens. That's annoying. If I want to platinum this game, which I could possibly platinum this one, I may have issues with that bigger than what I have right now. So as far as performance goes, and I touched a little bit on that, performance and load times were good, 15, 20 seconds, between restarts completely if you totally died. Load times otherwise were really good. There were no load times in the game. It was all completely open. The only load times that happened were like when you would go into a story bit and you got some voices, talking, and then you just come back out of that. And those were seconds, super under 5, like super, super short. I had some frame rate slowdown in larger battles when there was a lot going on in the screen at once. And as I got further in the game, I had a lot going on. So that did cause some good stutter here and there, which hopefully they'll increase in time, or if they put a PS5 version out, it'll be easier to handle. And obviously I did talk about the crashes already. So that kind of goes in with performance. That was not a good thing. So a couple of ideas I just thought of was, being able to run and slide. You can do this, but you can only do it in specific spots where you like get the fruit for your mounts. And I think it'd be cool if you could run and slide like under doors, something, a little small, or if you could even make your character smaller to be able to fit under areas where other characters maybe not fit, and it changed the way you play the game even further. It's just kind of one of those little nitpicky things that I think would be kind of cool, though. And the other idea they gave me, which was New Game Plus, that it does have a New Game Plus in it as well. So I'm going to use my New Game Plus and go through as a dark character and just see how that plays out. So that'll be fun. So just to wrap things up here, guys, some negatives, shouldn't be considered a AAA title. It's not really a negative, but that's just another thing. Don't consider it a AAA title. It's made by a small group of people. It is a little bit rough around the edges in some places. Upgrading and crafting can be tough to handle, on the very beginning of it. So it gets better as it goes. So that's kind of an in-between negative positives, just a statement. It doesn't explain what will happen from your actions sometimes. So you would go up and press, interact. And I did it on one, and I set like a camp on fire that I didn't want to. It was one of my guys' camp. It was a good guy. So that was a bit silly. It just made it happen. The narrator does talk a bit much, so I would turn that down. I had him down to like 20%. He talks a lot if you leave him where he's at normally. Just a heads up on that. He gets kind of annoying. Not terrible, but still. Calling in the mounts can be kind of finicky. I did discuss that a little bit as well. Frame rate can slow down. Talked about that. Platforming levels inside barns. There was a barn platforming level. It was terrible. The double jump didn't work in there for some reason. I don't know why. Anyhow, that was one that could have been fixed. Markers for NPCs and missions shouldn't always show up. Essentially, what I mean by that is there was a marker on certain things that you could only access if a character let you. Then the marker shouldn't show up unless I've activated it. That was annoying because I kept trying to get to these things and you couldn't until you were given a key from a certain character. You'll see if you play the game. Anyway, it was kind of annoying. And I felt like the final boss was unbalanced. The mechanics just didn't work very well with it. It has to do with being in water and stuff like that. The final boss for me anyway, there is a chance you can play the game in a different order. I didn't go in a different order. Maybe I went in a weird order anyway. Positives though, to end on a good note, battles have a slight feel of Monster Hunter for sure. Not really long fights, but not short either. They got shorter as I got better at weapons, and everything got, way, way smoother as I continued the game learning how to play. Really fun, and they started out really challenging until you learned everything. A lot like any game, like a lot like Monster Hunter would be. But the final boss definitely felt like a Monster Hunter to me because it had specific ways to attack him. I could see where they were pulling stuff from a lot of places. All the boss battles were often pretty fun. Even the mini bosses, I had a really good time with those. They were all different. They, some of them were just silly looking. They're just, the kids enjoyed watching them and laughing about them and stuff like that. Weapons are very cool, especially when you start upgrading them and getting the elemental powers onto them and, using the biohazard and electric and stuff like that, layering them on top of each other. It was a lot of fun dual wielding a biohazard and an electric weapon and just watching how much damage it would deal out. It was really cool. A lot of cool weapons in the game. Enemies were varied often. It was great. Very seldomly did I run into the same enemy. They were just kind of just scattered all around. And it was really, really nice not to always fight the exact same thing constantly. Gunplay was really good. Being able to maneuver and backflip and do the special abilities you get with the guns when you unlock them and stuff was just a really good time. And it was just a lot of fun to play. And it was honestly just a lot of fun to watch too. Very stylized look for the game as well, with that comic book feel. You get the pals and the zooms and all that stuff going up on the screen during your melee attacks and other enemies coming at you and stuff. It was really cool. Stacking abilities, jumping and moving and doing the flips and everything. Just very cool dynamic that it never got old for me. I just enjoyed it the whole time. And lastly, you get lost in this world and you just have fun for hours. My final playthrough, I was like just over 30 hours and I didn't do everything and it was just a blast and I had a really good time with it. And I'm looking forward to a sequel. I'm definitely looking forward to playing through as a dark character next to see what happens in the story and what all I can change. because there's just a lot you can do. Anybody out there looking for just a fun, laid back, relaxing, deep game, the crafting and everything is very deep. Biomutant, highly recommend it. I especially think for as small of a team as it was, that it is a great start. And I'll stand behind this one for a while. It's up on my list for 2021 game of the year. It is way up there right now, and we'll just see where it sticks when we bring some game of the year lists to you guys. So that is it. I hope everybody out there enjoys the game who's played it. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, click the old wild thumbs button there at the bottom. Let's talk games, guys. And remember, like we always say, don't be quiet, be loud.